Hi everyone, my name is Anik, and I'm here today to present you my project with NSLS. Let's Lead with Empathy, which is part of the executive leadership class that lasted for 18 weeks. The goal was to improve my leadership skills through 5 categories, which are the physical one, I want to hike for at least 1 hour per week. Emotional care, I want to meditate at least 60 minutes per week. Intellectual pursuit. I wanted to learn ASL and practice it for 60 minutes per week and read the book Mindset from Carol Westwick. Ethics. I wanted to read 6 articles about ethics in healthcare. And a service to others. I wanted to give and contribute to my community. For the physical aspect, my goal, as I said, was to hike at least 1 hour per week for a total of 18 hours. The end result, I hike for a total of 36 hours. This was my favorite part of the project, I have to admit. I chose hiking because it helps me maintain a good physical health. As an introvert, nature also helps me recharge my batteries, so it's beneficial for my mental health. And lastly, I chose hiking because I can choose different kind of challenges. So for example, I tried to select hikes with a high inclination, so mountains. I wanted to develop my strength with that strategy. Another example on the picture to the far right with the cliff and the lake, it was a 20-kilometer hike. My challenges for this one were to do something I've never done. So I've never hiked 20 kilometers in a day before that. I had to keep going even when I was tired and my feet hurted. It also helped me conquer my fears. Most of this hike is walking on the side of the cliff's edge. Some places were very narrow, and some other places required me to jump over cracks. The risk of slipping and falling was always present. I have to admit that I'm a little bit scared of heights. So that was challenging for me, but worth it. Now, as a leader, I believe that hiking improves my resiliency and helps me push through challenges so that I can face adversity with courage. I also find that hiking is very similar to problem solving. You can only go one step at a time to reach your goal. Sometimes you need to stop, sometimes you need a detour, but you always reach the finish line if you keep going. Intellectual pursuit. I decided to work on 2 different strategies. The first one was to read the book Mindset, The New Psychology of Success from Carol Westwick. I first heard about this book in one of the classes from an SLS, and I thought it was really interesting. It explores the differences between a fixed and a growth mindset. To be a good leader, the growth mindset is recommended. So throughout this book, strategies are given to help us shift our fixed mindset towards a growth one in different aspects of our lives. Having a growth mindset means that we seek feedbacks to improve. It also means that communication is key to any relationship and that passion leads our actions. With this definition, seeking a growth mindset for a leader is crucial to promote a culture of development. What's important to understand is that our mindsets are malleable. We can change them if we want to. It's also not rare to have different mindset. They can change depending on situation. So let's say with your family or when you're at work. So this book can help us work on one aspect of our lives at a time without feeling overwhelmed and when we're ready to work on them. The second one was learning the American Sign Language, ASL. To promote inclusivity, especially at work, I decided to learn this new language with Lingvano, an app. It's important to me that my patients feel heard and understood, especially when they're sick. I want them to feel respected, and I thought that learning how to communicate with the deaf community seemed like a great idea. I had fun learning ESL. It's not just about signing the right words, but also about body language. So self-awareness. I practiced for about 10 minutes per day to learn the basics by the end of the project. And this is just the beginning. I'm still practicing today. It's not because the project is done that I stopped. The goal was to reach a total of 18 hours, practicing for 18 hours. I only reached 12. I'm still satisfied with the outcome. I'm still practicing today, so this is good. Emotional care. I chose meditation for the emotional care portion of my project. I tried to meditate about 10 minutes a day, but it was hard to maintain consistency. So the end goal was to meditate for a total of 18 hours. And as a result, I was able to meditate about 10 hours, which is good. I did have some benefits out of it. I use guided meditations through two different apps. Because I'm French, I started with the one that's called Petit Bambou, but I had to switch since I couldn't afford to pay for that one. So I used the Fitness Plus app for the rest of my project, and I'm glad I did the switch. I really enjoy the meditations because they don't always focus only on breathing. Some of them they use sounds, others encourage us to set an intention and visualize it, which is beneficial for every leaders. So I found it easier to use guided meditation, especially the Fitness Plus app for beginners. I wanted to create a balance in my days between frantic and calm. I also wanted to improve my breathing techniques so I can use them effortlessly, especially at work during stressful situations. Since I find myself calmer, more focused, less emotionally reactive, and also, I find that I'm a better listener, so I can focus on what people are saying instead of trying to figure out what I'm about to say next. For leaders, having a sense of self-awareness and being able to act on it provides a better environment for discussions and problem solving. Ethics. Ethics are principles to help us differentiate right from wrong. As a paramedic, I wanted to delve on the subject of ethics in healthcare specifically and why it's so important. After reading 6 articles on the subject, I came up with this definition. There are guidelines that every employee needs to follow for the well-being of their patient and for themselves. So it promotes self-development. There are four primary characteristics. First one is autonomy, which means that the patients are responsible to make their own decisions. Beneficence, the right treatment for the right patient. Justice, treating with equity and not equality. Non-maleficence, do no harm. Ethics are a set of rules to promote fairness and accountability, which are important values for good leader. Doing research on this topic required a desire for self-development and define the values that are essential in my work environment. Service to others. This is the part where I struggled the most. My first intention was to do volunteer work, but setbacks prevented me to do so. So I had to be creative and rethink my options. I opted for two solutions. First one was to give some of my possessions to a local charity. It's important for me to give to those in need. The second one was to clean the streets in my neighborhood from the trash that accumulated during the winter. My goal with that one was to inspire people to do their parts for the environment, or at least to raise awareness on the concern. I believe that sometimes all a leader can do is to show the example, which I tried to do with this portion of the project. This section challenged my resilience and adaptability for sure. I will now do an analysis of my project. I will start with the SWOT analysis. So the strength of my project. What went well is definitely the physical part. I exceeded my goal and enjoyed every time I went out. The intellectual part, I completed the book and now have a better understanding of both mindsets. And finally, the ethic part. It went well. I finished all articles and it gave me a better knowledge on the subject. My weaknesses, so areas of improvement. Definitely my discipline with ASL and meditation. I should work on my commitment. That's the part I struggled the most. I found it hard to commit to 10 minutes a day for both. I'm, yep, it was hard. Another one is the service to others wasn't executed as expected. Different, not bad, just not like what I expected. Another one is I think that my expectations were too high at the beginning of the project. I overwhelmed myself up to a point where I didn't have the energy to do anything. So my time management, I struggled with it. The opportunities. So things that I would do differently if I had done my research properly prior to the start of the project, I would have either reserved my spot as a volunteer in one of the organizations in my community, or I could have planned for something totally different instead of finding a plan B last minute. So I would say being proactive instead of reactive would have created less stress for sure. The last one is the threats. Issues that were out of my control but impacted my project. Biggest one was that I started a new job during the project. It was a big challenge, especially for time management. It added stress and was very time consuming. The result is that I lacked the energy and time for some of the activities. I will now do the cold reflection. So one of the experience that I had during my Let's Lead with Empathy project is that every organization in my community, they were already full in volunteers, so there were no places available. It created frustration and stress. I had to adapt last minute to complete this portion of the project. During doing thorough research before setting the expectations would have avoided this whole situation. So next time, before I set expectations for myself, I'll verify if it's a feasible goal. And now for the conclusion. I have multiple points to go over. The leadership skills that I use were resilience. Is the main one. I faced a lot of setbacks, but I never gave up. I also used a lot of discipline to stay consistent with the meditation and the ASL. It wasn't perfect, but I stayed disciplined. Planning on a routine, it helped me stay on track. Self-improvement by reading about fixed and growth mindsets. Also by improving my knowledge of ethics in healthcare. And finally, by learning a new language, which promoted inclusivity. And the last one, grit. For working on a long-term project without giving up while keeping my purpose in mind. If I can give any advice to future students, it would be to define your purpose even before starting your project. If you write it down on a piece of paper and keep it accessible, it reminds you why you're doing this when you lack motivation. Another one that I can give you is that don't skip the research at the beginning. It's the most important part. Don't assume that things will go the way you want it. Confirm it. Get your yes before. It'll save you lots of stress. And lastly, let's lead with empathy. It started with the intention to strengthen my basis as a leader so that any further development would be easier. If I'm able to organize my thoughts, stay focused, develop my knowledge, and give to others, it's easier for me to be empathic. I want to be the kind of leader who listens, who is curious, and who inspire others to do their best. The best way to do this, in my experience, is to lead with empathy and recognize our shared humanity. Thank you for listening and have a good day.